국민에게 사죄할 말 없나요?
12 years ago, in 2008, a middle-aged man named Cho Do-sun brutally raped and tortured an 8-year-old girl in Ansan, Gyeonggi, leaving her with permanent internal damage. But the court instead sentenced him to 12 years in prison, taking note of the argument that Cho was under the influence of alcohol when he committed the rape. And on December 12, 2020, Cho Do-sun was released. Cho insisted during his trial that he was too drunk to remember anything, an argument that the court accepted and considered when it reduced Cho's ultimate sentence. Cho also triggered deep public resentment for his apparent lack of remorse about the heinous nature of his crime. In 2009, Cho was given a rating of 17 on the Korean Sex Offender Risk Assessment Scale. 12 years later, this rating is cited by those who suspect Cho will return to his old ways upon his release. Rules have been changed so that any adult aged 20 years or older now has access to a government database that lists the private information of sex offenders. In cases of sexual crimes involving children, convicts can no longer receive reduced sentences on grounds of drunkenness. Also, sex offenders that target girls that are 13 years old or younger can now be given a life sentence. In April 2019, the so-called Cho Do-sun Act was passed to extend the period in which sex offenders that assaulted minors have to spend wearing an electronic monitoring anklet. While ex post facto law prevents them from being applied to Cho himself, these measures are a step up from 2009, when sex crimes committed against children were only punishable with prison sentences up to 15 years. And on December 9, days before Cho's release, the National Assembly passed an amendment to the Act on Probation and Electronic Monitoring of Special Criminal Offenders that prohibits a sex offender from approaching a former victim. The new law also strengthens supervisions of sex offenders convicted for assaulting minors under the age of 19 and are wearing an electronic monitoring anklet. They are also prevented from being outdoors during hours when students commute to and from school, as well as late at night. As news of Cho's return to Ansan after his release became known, the victim and her family left the city. Other Ansan residents say they live in fear of what the released convict may do.
최선의 노력을 다하고 있습니다.
To ensure the safety of its residents, Ansan authorities set up a 24-hour patrol around Cho's residence and installed more surveillance cameras across the city. Emergency bells have also been placed in 108 park bathrooms that alert the police when pressed. Even with these toughened regulations, the public remains strongly against releasing sex offenders who have completed their sentences. Part of this is because sex crimes involving minors, as well as recidivism rates for sex offenders, have been continuously rising. Recidivism rates for sexual assault cases have also been on the rise. The Cho Do-sun case sheds light into the gravity of child sex crimes in Korea and has resulted in strengthened punishments for sex crimes and measures to prevent recidivism. However, child sex crimes continue to increase while criminal methods continue to evolve. Cho Ju-bin, the culprit behind the notorious Nth Room case, used the Telegram messaging app to produce, sell, and distribute sexually explicit videos involving children and minors. Case in point, sexual assault cases that target children and adolescents using an online grooming method are rapidly on the rise.